Oh, James, it's just amazing watching 20 living hostages be reunited with their families. I was glued to the TV last night as the president was addressing Parliament in Israel. But it's been amazing also to watch other countries and other leaders try and take credit for Donald Trump's work. There was a UK MP trying to say that the UK was really significant in this. And here in Australia, our Foreign Minister, Penny Wong, also in a roundabout way tried to take credit for the peace deal too. She did thank Donald Trump, but listen to this.
You know, the coalition really has been out of step with the international community for such a long time. Remember, the coalition opposed a ceasefire that President Trump himself supported. Remember, the coalition has not understood the way in which the international community, that different countries of the world have come together over a year to try and work how it is that we create the conditions for the pathway to peace.
So James talking about the international community and Australia's contribution to what the international community did. It certainly was not to help Israel.
Well, you know, that was an extraordinary piece of rewriting of history by Penny Wong, who clearly wants this to be the Penny Wong peace plan, right? But of course it's not. Look, you know, she's trying to stick the boot into the coalition. And I thought Labor that always says, oh, the other side is trying to score political points here. Well, I mean, that's precisely what she was doing in that circumstance there. But this idea that, you know, this coalition of nations recognizing Palestine somehow created the conditions for peace is completely wrong-headed. This is exactly the sort of expert class foreign policy thinking that has made this conflict, not just, you know, the most recent war between Hamas and Israel, but the war between Hamas and Israel that really arguably started, you know, more than 20 years ago, and really everything that's bedeviled the Middle East since the formation of the State of Israel, that is all been protracted by that sort of foreign policy thinking. And it is completely wrong-headed. What Donald Trump did here is to overturn the entire thing, rewrite the rule book, and recognize something that for people like me who've been traveling to the Middle East, I've been in and out of the Middle East really since the 1990s, you know, and you talk to the people in Arab countries and you realize, you know, Trump realized very quickly there's actually not a huge amount of support for the Palestinian cause as a cause, except as a way to, you know, use it as a lever against the West. And that's what that was all about. He broke that link. He realized, he said, guys, you can make a lot more money and you can have a much better, more peaceful life if you just give that up, cut your ties, stop supporting terrorism, stop supporting Hamas. And, you know, Qatar, well, there was a bit of a stick there with Netanyahu and that strike, you know, but Qatar realized they were in some jeopardy. Iran copped it, of course, the worst with the strike at Fordo, and that was spoken about a lot last night. And it was just miraculous that and what that did. But also other nations, you know, Turkey, NATO ally, wants F-35s, and Trump said, well, little problem with that, you know, and so they suddenly stopped their support for Hamas. Egypt, terrified of the conflict spilling over into Sinai. Hamas was isolated. None of these foreign policy geniuses, no Penny Wong genius ever thought, hey, why don't we cut Hamas's support off rather than acting like the people who are supporting Hamas will be supporting Hamas forever? You know, that's what changed here, and that's what's so important.
Yeah, you're exactly right, James. I think his deal making has been exceptional to get all the Arab nations on board, to cut that deal with Qatar just overnight, really, and then to take out Iran's nuclear facilities, really weaken Hamas to this point. It's been incredible, absolute masterclass by Donald Trump, a historic achievement. Now, I do want to talk to you about the Democrats. And it seems as though things aren't all that great between former President Joe Biden and former Vice President Kamala Harris. Now, the Vice President has been forced to admit that Joe Biden is dodging her phone calls. Watch this.
Have you talked to him about it?
I called him earlier.
How's he doing?
I have not talked to him. I just left him a message after I heard the news. I was otherwise on the event at the event.
Look, I don't really blame Joe Biden for not taking her call. What do you make of it, James?
Yeah, well, look, I mean, Joe Biden's got his own problems, and I'm, frankly, not really sure how well he's doing these days. But beyond that, though, this is not the first time Kamala Harris has been, caught out on those phone calls. Remember when she was doing that walk around making a fake phone call
Oh,
thing,
yeah, for the cameras,
for the cameras,
social
so
media.
so she couldn't talk or anything like that. This is classic Kamala, and again, this is what we dodged.
Yeah.
That is the reality that we could have had as president.
Oh no, I know, and it's really a scary thought, especially when you see where the world is now. You just think, thank God that President Trump survived that
100%.
assassination attempt and was voted in November last year. Yeah, both of them. That's right. Now, but the Democrats are in such a desperate position. They want Kamala to run again.
Do you think that Kamala Harris would be a strong candidate in 2028?
Candidate, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, she was the nominee last time. I think
you would encourage her to run.
I think she would be incredibly strong.
Absolutely. Now it seems as though the Kamala Harris-Gavin Newsom rivalry.
Do it.
That's right. A lot of Republicans.
Yes, Kamala, listen to the man there. He's right. Get your exploratory committee. Run. Get that nomination.
Well, it's interesting because the Kamala Harris and Gavin Newsom rivalry is starting to build to a possible 2028 showdown. Now, we know that Kamala Harris really took aim at Gavin Newsom in her book 107 Days, saying that he never returned her phone call. And then, of course, Newsom is leading this anti-Trump movement in California at the moment. So do you see things really heating up between the two of them over the next few years?
Well, no, because I think that really the Kamala thing is, as much as I joke about it, it's not going to, there's no momentum there. Who's going to look at that campaign? Well, maybe the Democrats, but who's going to look at that campaign and say, yeah, that was so good. We missed it by this much. And if we just had a little more time, we might be able to, do something with this and get her over the line. I mean, it's like, no, of course that's not going to happen. Look, the mail is it's going to be Gavin Newsom, the governor of California, a state that the Democrats have ruined, and they're going to try and get the nomination of the presidency and do the same thing to the United States, what Gavin Newsom did to California. So that'll be a lot of fun for everybody if he were to win. What he does, though, present is, he's very slick. He looks like a politician. You'll hear him on your screen right there. He's very polished. He will say anything to get elected. But I think also what he's going to do is he's already starting to run a national campaign. He's already running a national campaign. And so this is where it's going. He's just going to be so far out ahead. The other people potentially, Pete Buttigieg, he's nowhere. Nobody wants him. It's not because he's gay. It's because he was a terrible transport secretary. He was such a terrible transport secretary that Americans actually knew who the transportation secretary was when he was office. That's how bad he was. No normal person should know that. And people like Pritzker out of Illinois, well, again, he's not going to be there. And although there's a lot of money, the Pritzker family is a billionaire family. He doesn't look the part, let's just say.
Well, it's interesting. I'm not as convinced as you are about Kamala Harris. I'm sure plenty of her staff around her. She's got people convincing her that she almost won. She's still saying it in speeches. She's trying to rewrite history. She completely forgot that Donald Trump won the popular vote, all 7 swing states. But you're right about Gavin Newsom. He'll say anything to get elected. He's flip-flopped on trans issues, and he's got his podcast, and his whole social media strategy at the moment is bizarre, trying to kind of mimic Donald Trump. It just absolutely does not work. It'll be a disaster. But looking at California, Katie Porter is right now the leading Democratic candidate to become California's next governor. And of course, we showed on this program last week the meltdown she had on CBS because a reporter dared to do her job, which is to ask follow-up questions. But now footage has surfaced of Katie Porter blasting a staffer back in 2021. Watch this.
What it showed is if we don't electrify our transportation sector, that we're going to lose more than 500,000 Californians dying prematurely to air pollution and other problems. And the state could lose. Get out of my shot.
I wanted to tell you that that's actually incorrect. It's not that it's electric vehicles. It's that if we don't meet the commitments under the Paris Climate Accord.
Okay, it does. Okay, you also were in my shot before that. Stay out of my shot. Okay, I'm going to start again.
James, she seems charming.
Yeah, she does seem charming, and I just hope somebody has done a welfare check on that staffer and make sure that they're still alive. Because Katie Porter, she seems like one of the most unpleasant people in public life, and I have no idea how she's managed to come up to the ranks of the Democrat Party in California to the point where she could potentially be the governor of this really huge and important state. It's nuts. All of the other stories, you just played a little bit there. There was another thing where she refused to go on with an interview because she didn't like the questions. Her ex-husband, dear God, pray for that man. Sounds like he had a real time with her. Court documents have revealed that, among other things, she once dumped a steaming bowl of mashed potatoes on his head, wouldn't let him have a mobile phone because she said you would be too effing stupid to use it.
Wow.
How to use it. She's a really deeply unpleasant character here. And I mean, if that was a male and that was a Republican, well, or a human being in any other sort of, circumstance, people say, this person is not somebody who you want anywhere near the levers of power. And, they'd be accused of being abusive and controlling and, all sorts of things, quite fairly, too. And, you don't want those people in public life. And she's just deeply, deeply unpleasant to absolutely everybody. Now, I don't know who the Republicans have got, but I hope they've got somebody good.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And honestly, if she's speaking to her staffer that way while she's recording herself on a Zoom, imagine what else she does in public. It's not a good look at all. Just finally, before I let you go, Trump is, of course, rushing back to DC. So he's there to honour Charlie Kirk tomorrow, because we know that Charlie Kirk would have turned 32 on Tuesday. So it will be the National Day of Remembrance for Charlie Kirk. James, it's going to be another emotional day, I think, for plenty of Americans and people right around the world.
Look, it's fascinating. I mean, not just Charlie Kirk tomorrow, but also I got to stay at the White House at 2:30 a.m., right? And then at 1 o'clock, he's meeting the president of Argentina and doing a thing with him. And then at 4 o'clock, he's doing the medal ceremony for Charlie Kirk. And it's like, this man, does he ever sleep? He just turns Big Macs into freedom. I don't know how he does it. It's just amazing.
Isn't it incredible? I mean, looking at his whirlwind trip of the Middle East, you've got Israel, Egypt, back to DC, and then, as you said, he just still doesn't stop when he's back there. Very different schedule to Joe Biden's schedule for over the last few years. James Morrow.
Or our own prime ministers.
Oh, isn't that true? That's an absolutely fair point. Sky News host James Morrow, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks. See you next time.